Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be answering some more of your guys' CPA questions. I asked you guys on Instagram a while ago to ask me some questions, and I got through quite a bit of them, but I still have a ton. So just want to start off by saying I will have all of the questions that I answered listed down below. They'll be in order, so if you want to kind of skip around or just find the questions that relate to you, you could find those. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, if you have questions that I did not discuss, leave them down below. I have a whole nother video that I will also try and link down below. If you guys don't hear the questions that you may have, you want to check that one. I also definitely recommend checking out some of my other CPA CPA videos, because I did do vlogs of the test day, I did do score reactions, I did update you guys on what my what I was doing for each section. So those videos I feel like would be even more helpful just because I was in the moment, whereas right now I'm just kind of looking back, and although I think that's also helpful because I know what worked and what didn't, I think it's also good to check those. So just wanted to point that out there. If you're not super familiar with my journey, I know a lot of people may just watch some of my videos. This might be the first one that you're watching. I did recently pass the CPA exam. I passed my last section in May, and so the order that I took them in was FAR first, then I took audit, then I did my repeat FAR because I failed the first one, then I took BEC, and then I took reg. My scores were 70, 86, 86, 87, 86. So very high 80s. Like I feel pretty comfortable, obviously anything over 75, but I did score pretty well on all the parts except for the first one that I failed. So just wanted to point that out there. I am currently in the process of getting my license. I'm waiting to hear back from all of that. So I will do an update definitely when I get my license and tell you guys the process and all of that fun stuff. So let's get into the actual questions. What was the overall cost of getting your CPA? Test materials, actual fees, all of that. So I do have another video on the process, and I talk about the fees. So definitely check that out. Again, I have a whole accounting playlist which goes over, you know, my test day stuff, the cost, everything like that. But out of pocket, I have only spent, I believe, $200 total, and that includes 2 updated versions of the Becker textbooks, because I did not wait to get them. I got all of them at the same time, and it took me a little bit longer than when I thought it was going to take me to get through the exams. So those were $25 each, so $50, and then I recently paid for my CPA license, which was like $120 something, I believe. So those were the only things that I had to pay for. One nice thing about working and getting your CPA is that a lot of times companies will pay for those fees, they'll pay for your review material and all of that. So out of pocket, for me, probably less than $200, which is insane because I think Becker alone is like over $3,000, maybe even like $4 or $5. But of course, it's like kind of a necessity if you're going to pass, you know, you need a review course. So definitely check out that video though if you want to know like what my company paid for it. If you had to take them in a certain order, which would you take them in? I did a lot of research, and I think I mentioned this in the last video, but I did do a lot of research last time about which order to take them in, and everybody that I talked to and read about said FAR, audit. Actually, they might have said FAR, audit, reg, BEC. That might have been the order. And then I think because of timing, I didn't want to take reg and rush it so I could get it in 2018, because I knew if I failed it, I'd have to relearn everything from the new rules. So I think technically people said just take FAR, audit, reg, then BEC, because then you have like hard, and again, this is all relative, like it just depends on which strengths you have. But in CPA world, FAR and Reg are supposed to be the hard exams, and then Audit and BC are supposed to be the easier exams. Again, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think they're all hard, and I think how hard they are and which one is harder and all of that depends on what your strengths are. But I personally did FAR, Audit, BEC, Reg. And I've talked about this 100 times before, but my hardest exam, the hardest material for me to get through was BEC. I think that the hardest actual exam was probably FAR because there's just so much they can test you on. But if I had to retake them, I would take them in that same order that I took them. On average, how many hours a week were you studying? Did it change by exam? So in the very beginning, when I was studying for FAR, the time that I failed, my study routine was pretty set and I kept track of how many hours I was studying. I always had a goal, like I wanted to study a certain amount every day. That way it would equal what Becker said that you should study for like each section or each chapter or whatever. So during the days, the weekdays, I would try and study at least 2 hours. And then on the weekends, my goal was to study anywhere between 8 and 10 hours. That did not work for me. And you guys probably noticed that because I didn't pass. Studying long hours on the weekends, especially when you work full time and you have a child, it's just not going to work. At least it didn't work for me. So what I did going forward is I would try and study as much as I possibly could during the week, and then I would wake up super early before Jason and Macy and I would study you know, in the morning on the weekends, and maybe even like during Macy's nap after we got to do some fun stuff. But I stopped like making myself study all day and started like making sure I got some good study time in and then getting to live my life, because that's the hardest part. You feel like you always should study and you feel like you shouldn't be doing anything else, but if you don't do anything else, you're gonna get frustrated with the process and it's not going to work. So I would say on average, if I had to guess, I would say between 2 and 3 hours during the week, every weekday, and then on the weekends maybe like 3 to 4 hours. So what is that, like let's say low end 2 times 5, 10, and then like 16 hours a week. I'm sure there was higher and lower times depending on what the material is and what I had to do, but I really didn't study that much. Like compared to a lot of people, I wasn't, you know, it wasn't like 4 hours a day. I got home, I did not study. Like I tried to get as much as I possibly could get done in the morning and then sometimes during lunch, but I was not studying late at night because that didn't work for me. So really I didn't feel like I was studying that much, but I feel like a lot of it just had to do with learning what I needed to do. After you pass your first test, excuse me, after you pass your first test, I feel like you kind of understand more of like, okay, I just need to get through the material, I need to practice the multiple choice questions, and like I should be okay. That's at least what my experience was. Do you recommend to take BEC at the end? I am planning to take it in 3rd place as you did, thank you. Again, I chose the lineup of my exams prior and BEC was going to be last, but I ended up doing it in the middle, like the 3rd, because of timing issues. I just wanted to get another exam out and done, and I knew I just wouldn't have a ton of time to do that if I wouldn't have a ton of time for Reg, and I wanted to make sure I spent a lot of time on Reg. So if I had to redo it again, I would do it the same way that I did it. I would do FAR, Audit, BEC, and Reg. The only downside to doing BEC at the end is that BEC has a written portion. So if you look online, normally it says it could take anywhere from a week or 2 weeks extra to get your scores because they have to grade that written portion. In my experience, I got it the same day that I was supposed to get, that everybody else got their scores. That wasn't an issue. But that is what it says. So if it's your last exam and you're taking it and then you're waiting on score day to get your grade, and let's say for some reason it doesn't come up when everybody else's, that would stink. I would hate for that to be my last one, because it's like, am I done? Am I not done? Like, am I gonna keep having to study? Am I gonna have to retake this? Or am I completely done? Can I start applying for my license? All of that. So that's the only reason why I would say not to. But like I said, all my research said that BEC at the end was completely fine. So that's the only downside that I see to having BEC at the end. What do you think about studying, taking notes on an iPad for accounting / CPA? I personally don't like taking notes on a computer. I'm more of like a paper and pen type of person. I'm like that with my planners. You guys, if you've watched other videos, you know I write everything down. I think for note taking, especially for me, when I write it, I remember it more. So if I'm typing it, I feel like I'm not going to remember it as well. Also, like, I have highlighters, I just mark stuff up, I color coordinate stuff, and you can totally do that with an iPad or with a computer, but I personally just like the handwriting part. And I'm sure there's studies out there that show that if you are taking notes and stuff like that, that you remember it more. So that's kind of what I did. I've never taken notes on a laptop. It's just not for me, but I'm sure other people have and it's worked. So just do what works for you and how you learn better. What software do you use to edit the vlogs? Considering blogging my CPA year. So I actually use iMovie because I have a MacBook. I have had Mac or Apple products forever. I got my first, I believe it was a MacBook. It was the white one when I started college. Used that, and that one was still going. It was just a little bit slower. So when I started my MBA, I got my new MacBook. It's like the rose gold one, and I have been using that for 3-4 years now, and it works perfectly fine. So when you buy that, the iMovie comes free, and so I use iMovie. It's really simple. I've looked into other software type of stuff, and it just seems like the easiest option. Okay, a lot of people ask how many hours a week did I study? How do you stay on track with studying? I know you did a chapter a week approach, but how do you handle if something came up during the week, work, home, etc.? So like I said, I successfully was able to do 1 chapter a week. With Reg, I gave myself 1 less week than I normally do. So Reg has 8 chapters. I normally would have given myself 10 weeks. So 8 weeks to get through the material and then 2 weeks for review. I gave myself 9. So that meant that I had to get through all the material in 7 weeks. That was a struggle for sure, because a chapter a week is definitely what I'm more comfortable with, but it was doable. Like, I was able to do it. So that kind of ties in with the fact that, you know, you're asking how I was able to stay on track if something came up. Really, if like one day I didn't study as much, let's say something came up, I woke up late, Macy was sick, Jason was sick, things were crazy at work, I needed to get there early, whatever, I would still study. Whatever I could, I would study in the morning, and then I would either study during my lunch, study at night, which is not ideal, but some days you just have to do it, or I would just have to study more other days. So normally that ended up being me studying more on the weekends, which again, I don't like doing, but you have to make it up somewhere. So it was either the next day or a couple days later I would study more, or on the weekends I would study more. The weekends were really nice because normally what would happen is I would have my last like module was on Saturday, so I had to do that, and each module, like, my process was kind of long, so I'd have to watch the lecture, do the skills practice, do the multiple choice questions, and then take notes, which taking notes took so long, but again, it was worth it because it worked for me. And then on Sunday, usually the last day, if everything went right, all I had to do were simulations, and I didn't put a ton of weight on simulations. I would try them. If I like wasn't getting stuff right, I'd check what the answers were, try to understand why the answer was what it was, fill it in, and then I was done. So Sunday was really my like makeup day. If I needed to, you know, get an extra module in or something like that, I could do that on Sunday because I knew that the module or the simulations weren't going to be like I wasn't gonna put too much weight on them anyway. So hopefully that makes sense. So if you just try and get most of the material done before Sunday, then Sunday can be your catch-up day. If you're behind, if something comes up, like that's honestly what I did. And a lot of people ask about simulations. I never studied simulations. I would work on them while I was going through the material. Again, I didn't put a ton of weight on them because I knew those simulations were probably not going to be the simulations I would see again. And I knew at that point, I didn't know the material well enough to really be able to do super well. Like the way that I was able to do well on simulations without actually studying them was by knowing the material through the multiple choice questions. I feel like, for me at least, the multiple choice questions would give me enough knowledge about the material, like, and then I was able to apply that type of, I was able to apply that knowledge to the simulations. I know it's not, like, obviously multiple choice questions are different than simulations, but the material that you learn from the multiple choice questions helps with that, if that makes sense. So that's really what I was able to do. How did you figure out what studying method worked best for you? That's a great question. And honestly, every single section required a different type of study method. And I feel like it's a lot of just trial and error. You have to try things, you have to see what works. When I originally started FAR, FAR was definitely a learning experience in a lot of ways. So when I first started FAR, my plan was to do what I did in college with any accounting class, which was to read the textbook before I went to class. So like read the textbook before I start watching lectures, and then I would watch the lectures, do all of that. And I quickly realized that reading the textbook was going to take forever because the chapters are really long, like really long. You have to think about FAR's textbook is like that big, and there's only like what, 12 chapters within there. Like those are big chapters. So I think the first day that I studied for FAR, I read the textbook. And then the next day, I did the lecture and I realized this is a lot of repeat. Like they're pretty much just going line by line and telling me what's important, what's not important. So why am I reading the textbook? So then, like seriously, 2 days in, I'm like, I'm not reading the textbook. Like that doesn't make any sense. I feel like with that, you do, like most people do one or the other. Maybe you don't watch the lectures. Maybe you just read, and that's completely okay. But I realized very soon on that I was going to be doing double the work, and maybe that would help me remember it, but I didn't have time to do that. Like, you know, I was working, I have a kid, like I don't have time to do double the work. So with that, I learned, okay, I'm not gonna do that anymore. Same thing with notes. My notes were really sloppy with FAR. The first time that I went around doing it, very sloppy, very unorganized. I just like, when I was going through it, I never knew what was going on. I didn't have examples in there. And so when I did audit, my notes got so much better. I took my time with them, even if they took longer, which really frustrated me, taking forever taking notes. But I knew going back after like reviewing my notes for FAR and being super confused, I knew with audit it would be really useful. So I spent more time with my audit notes and just little things like that. Like I think, again, most of it is just trial and error. You're gonna try things and then you're gonna realize after the fact, like this is not gonna work. It's either gonna take too much time, it's too messy, like it's just not going to work. And so that's really how I found out what worked for me, and things pretty much stayed the same. I mean, I never read the textbook after that second day. I really focused on my notes for all of the sections after. I focused a lot on my notes and making sure they were neat, highlighting things, all of that. I also learned with FAR, with my retake, about Becker's final review. And I've talked about this 100 times. I'm sure you guys are so sick of me talking about final review. But after I did it for FAR, for my retake, so that was after audit, I did the final review every single time because it was this great way to review. I would use my notes and review that way, but the final review is like a good cram tool where you could like quickly go over all of the material and then you could focus on the multiple choice questions, and it just gave me confidence every time. So again, I think it's just trial and error. Don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to change things. For BEC, I legit changed my study plan so many times because you just, like, you never know what is going to work for you, and you never know what's going to work for you for that material. So again, my biggest piece of advice is try stuff. Like, if you see other people doing stuff, try it. If it doesn't work, adjust it. Like, it's okay to change things. I changed things for BEC so much and I ended up passing, and it didn't matter if I changed it halfway through or changed it at the very end. Like, if you just feel comfortable with what you're doing, you'll be okay. All right. What did you do to reset mentally after taking one exam before moving on to the next? That's a great question. So I'm gonna tell you what I actually did each time, and then I'll tell you what I recommend doing after. So for FAR, I walked out the first exam knowing that I failed. And luckily enough, Jason and I had an anniversary cruise planned for like a couple days later. So after that exam, I went and I did all the stuff I needed to do to get ready for our cruise. So I went to get my nails done. It was just kind of like a relaxing day, and it didn't take my mind off of it necessarily, but it was kind of like, okay, I'm done with this for now. Like, there's no point in worrying about it. And then obviously I went on the cruise for a couple days. That was very relaxing. And by the time I got back, because I took a couple days off, like I think it was a week off from studying and just like getting to relax, I was refreshed. I was ready to go. I was ready to start audit, and I started audit that Monday. With audit and with BEC, let's see, with audit, afterwards, Jason and I took Macy to Benihana. I think that was her first time ever going to Benihana, and we just thought it'd be fun. Like, we actually, every single time after I took my exams, after FAR, that's what we did. So after audit, after my FAR retake, after BEC, and after reg, we went to Benihana, and it was like a celebration thing. Even if I didn't pass, like I never knew for sure that I passed after the exams. I had a good feeling about most of them. I never knew for sure, but it was like, okay, I took the exam, it's over with. Let's go celebrate and like kind of, you know, just spend time, like family time together, because we didn't get to do a lot of that when I was studying, especially at the very end. Let's see. With audit, when I finished audit, I decided, no, sorry, I'm getting confused. After I did my retake for FAR, at that point I was waiting for FAR and audit results. So at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm not starting another section because I might have to take another one again. I might have to take 2 again, and I don't want to start new material and have to relearn stuff and all of that. So I'm like, you know what? I'm taking December off. I took the entire month of December off. I found out my results on December 15th, I believe, maybe December 11th. And then the rest of the month, I just completely took off because I'm like, you know what? During the holidays is probably the worst time that you could possibly study. I'm gonna be stressed. I'm gonna be wanting to like spend time with family. There's no way that I'm gonna get effective studying done. And so I took the month off. So it was great. It was the first couple of weeks, I was waiting for my scores. But after that, it was like, oh, I knew I passed 2. I knew I was gonna start BEC, but I got to relax and just spend time with family, and that's what I really need. And then with reg, obviously, well, with BEC, there's a week in between, and then with reg, I think I had like 10 days or so. So those 2, because they changed the score release date, so now it's earlier, I just realized like I'm not going to start studying again. I'm just gonna wait and see how I did, and then I can start from there. I definitely recommend taking some type of time off in between, because especially if your exam didn't go very well, you know, even if you're not even sure if you did well, like if you're just like, that could have gone either way, you need time to just kind of like deal with it. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but after my audit exam, I was pretty bummed. Like, I was like, you know what? I thought I knew this material well. I felt really good. I got an 82 on my mock exam. That I've never gotten that, you know, that good of a grade on a mock exam. And then I walked out feeling like, you know, the multiple choice questions weren't that bad, but the simulations were like very confusing. And so I just, like, I did not feel good about it. I thought I was going to walk out feeling great about that exam. I thought I worked my butt off, and I walked out thinking, well, it could go either way, and I hated that. I was so upset that that's the way it went. So I was grumpy that day. I was really grumpy. If you ask Jason and Macy, like, I just was not in a good mood. Even when we went out to lunch, like, I was just kind of annoyed and like frustrated. And if I would have started studying for BEC right away, or for FAR right away, actually I did start studying for FAR right away. I think I waited like a couple days, but I did start studying pretty soon after that. But if I would have studied the next day, I would have been frustrated and it probably wouldn't have been very effective. So again, you have to find what works best for you. For me, taking at least a couple days off in between really helped. And now, again, with the score release dates being so soon, I feel like there's no reason to start studying right away unless you're like really trying to get like tests done like as soon as you possibly can. Okay. Best tips for passing FAR. What would you do differently? Okay, so best tips, I would say definitely the final review if you have Becker. Other thing would be, the thing that I did the last day before my retake was I took the FAR book and I went page by page and just kind of like review the material. I don't do multiple choice questions the day before the test because I feel like that just psychs you out. But I would always do some type of review. So like either flipping through my notes or flipping through the book. Flipping through the book really helped because if there was topics that I wasn't super sure about, but I was also like, crap, if I get this on the test, like, am I gonna be okay? That helped me because I could be like, you know what, this is not that bad. Like, I remember this, I could definitely do this on the exam. And if you're not, like, if you're still at that point and you're not feeling that great about it, then you can like then you can start looking over it a little bit more, and like maybe you will find that on your test. That's the biggest thing that worked for me. And again, for what would I do differently if I was going to take the test again and it wasn't a retake, if it was my first test, I would say the big thing is just take your time with your notes. Your notes are going to be key. Do their final review during your review process. I think that's also key. I also want to know about the review course. What shall I follow along with Becker books? I'm not sure what you're asking there. What shall I follow along? I did follow along with the lectures, if that's what you're asking. But like I said, I did not read the books beforehand. I just watched the lectures, took notes in the books, and then after I did that, I would take my own notes because there's a lot in there that's like repetitive or just kind of like not in your own words, and I feel like you need your own words for some of those. Okay, I'm planning to take audit and BEC exam in next 2 months. Please guide me the best way to pass in one go. Definitely check out my, that was weird. I thought I heard a beep. Definitely check out my videos on those too. I have lots of videos on all of those topics. Like I said, I think the biggest thing for me was just realizing that I needed to take better notes, and then to really pass, I think what changed from the first exam that I took to all the other exams was that I practiced multiple choice questions as much as I possibly could. And people asked me a lot, like, how much that ended up being. And again, I try not to focus on the numbers, which is funny because it's accounting. But if you're worried about the time you're taking to study, or if you're worrying about how many multiple choice questions you're getting through, then you're not really focusing on the material. So I would do like anywhere between like 10 to 20 sets of 10 multiple choice questions. That was always good because then that was like just enough questions so that like I could get a good mix of the topics, but not too many so that like you're kind of getting annoyed with doing them, if that makes sense. Like after you submit it and you realize what you get, you're either like, okay, I kind of got this, or you're like, crap, I need to keep studying. So I would say anywhere between 100 and 200 multiple choice questions a day. And my review period was always like 2 weeks. So during the first week, it would be mostly just like getting through my notes, like reviewing my notes, doing the final review. Last week was all multiple choice questions, and then the last couple of days before the exam was just kind of reviewing my notes again or going through the book, stuff like that. That's definitely what I did and what I would do again. But you just have to find what works best for you. How's Becker final review impacted after they delete its downloadable desktop app? I'm not sure. I actually saw this, and I'm assuming that you can still download the final review because it's separate from the other material. So if you go into downloads, I'm pretty sure that the final review is still there because they don't offer the final review online. Can you go into more detail about how much you studied for each section? Again, I kind of talked about that in the very beginning, but also definitely check out the other videos that I did on each section because I definitely go into way more detail about what it all entailed. Wow, a lot of people want to know about like how many hours. Okay, I think this is a good question, and I'm gonna end it pretty soon. And I'll do more. Again, if you have questions that you want answered, leave them down below. I will get to them. I'm gonna keep doing these as much as you guys have questions. So the last question I'm gonna do is your CPA journey in brief and how not to give up when you don't pass in a subject. Okay, so like I said, my CPA journey has started a long time ago, because for me in Illinois, I needed 150 credit hours to even take the exams. So after I had my daughter, pretty soon after I had my daughter, I started researching and decided to get my MBA. So I got my MBA. That took 2 years. I knew as soon as I passed, or as soon as I finished my MBA, I wanted to jump right into the CPA exam because a lot of the material that I learned in my MBA program would kind of transfer over. My specialization was in finance, so there's definitely finance related topics in the accounting exam, so I wanted to just jump right in. My original plan was to finish in 6 months. So I think I started studying in May. My plan was to be done in November. I quickly realized within seriously like the first week or so that was not going to happen. Because I think with that, I would have had to do at least 2 chapters a week, and there's no way to do that for me as a mom and as working full time. Like that, there just wasn't a way to do that. So then I got a little bit more realistic with it, and I think I rescheduled it. I rescheduled some of my exams and just realized that it was going to be probably more of a year process. It was going to take double the time, which makes sense because instead of doing 2 modules a week, I was doing 1, double time, 6 months to a year. And that was fine because, again, this process, you have to be flexible. If that was set in my mind, like it's going to happen in 6 months, I would have been pushing myself for something that was unrealistic given my circumstances. So, again, I took FAR. I did not feel great walking out, and I found out pretty soon after that I got a 70% or 70. I guess they don't do percentages. I got a 70. Before finding out my exam score, I started studying for audit, and I took audit, and then I realized that I failed FAR, so I did a retake of FAR and found out both exam scores on the same day. I got an 86 on both, which I still don't to this day understand how you can get an 86 on both, but whatever. Like I said, I took December off, so I found out early December how I did, and I took the rest of December off. January 1st, I started studying for BEC, and I took BEC in March, And then a week later or so, when I found out that I passed BEC, I started studying for reg, and I found out in May that I passed reg. So it has been a May to May journey, and it's funny because that's exactly what happened with my daughter. We started trying for her in May, finally got pregnant in May. I feel like May is a big month for our family for some reason. But that's kind of what my journey was. And I would say how not to give up when you fail. It's hard because, trust me, when I failed FAR, when I walked out of that exam and I realized that like my chances of passing that was not very high, part of me was like, you know what, this is stupid. Like, why am I even doing this? But it has been a goal of mine for so long. Like, since I decided to go into accounting, I always knew that like the CPA was my end goal. Like, that is what I want to do. And if you talk to anybody, and it's actually kind of funny, if you talk to anybody and you tell them you're an accountant, the first question they ask you is, are you a CPA? So I felt like to be an accountant, even though this is totally not true, to be an accountant, I had to be a CPA. It's, again, not because of what other people think, but in my mind, like, I wanted to be a CPA. So I think because it's been a goal of mine, I am like very determined. I'm like, when I set my mind to something, like, I don't give up. So after taking that exam, initially I was like, you know what, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? Why am I spending all this time away from my family to study for this stupid exam? And then over time, I'm like, you know what? If it was easy, then everybody would be a CPA. Like, they say that this is one of the hardest professional exams, and that's for a reason. And the fact that I got a 70 and I was only 5 points away from passing, like, that shows that, like, okay, I can do this. Like, I didn't get a 30, I got like a 70. So I was pretty close. And I think, again, it's just something that I've wanted for so long, and I'm like, you know what, I've come this far, I got my MBA, I like have worked so hard for this, I'm gonna finish this, and it's gonna be hard, and that's fine, because if it wasn't hard, then everybody would do it. Like, the whole reason why, like, you're a CPA is a nice thing to say is because people know that you worked hard, you know, like, it's not something that's easy. And so I think, again, the main reason why I kept fighting through it, even though a lot of it was hard, was because it's been something that I've wanted to do forever, and I knew if I didn't do it now, then my entire life I'd be like, you know what, I should have kept going. I should have tried harder. What if I would have tried harder? What if I would have done this differently? And so I knew in the back of my mind it would always be there. Like, I'd always want to do it. I would always want that as a goal. And so, again, give yourself time. If you don't do well, let yourself, you know, take a little break, figure out what you're gonna do differently, and then go forward. I have to say too, and this is like pretty recent, so I feel like it's kind of funny, but in a couple of my videos right before reg, I talked about the fact that, like, you know, a lot was going on, and it seemed like every single time that I did a test update or whatever, a lot of stuff was going on. It was always like, work is crazy, or Macy was sick, or Jason was sick, or I was sick, or there's doctor's appointments, or, like, you know, there's always something. And so I was talking about that, and like, oh, you know, first quarter close is like the worst quarter for us. I've been going to the doctor a lot, so like doctor's appointment takes so much time, and someone commented, first quarter close, doctor's appointments, yeah, there's no way you're passing. And seeing that, instantly, like, I'm like, and I think it's just part of my, like, competitive nature, but when I saw that, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna show you wrong. You think you, like, I think, again, so many people my entire life probably had ideas of what I was going to be, what I was not going to be, and I always knew what I wanted to do. Like, even from an early age, I had an idea of what I wanted my life to be, and so I've worked really hard for it. So when people do that, or when people say stuff like that, I feel like it gives me more motivation. Like, not only do I want to prove you wrong, but like, okay, challenge accepted, you know? Hopefully that makes sense. It's not, I wasn't mad at that person at all, but I think it just proved to me, like, people I think most people expect you not to do well, especially when you have a lot going on. And for me, I'm like, you know what? That's not, like, those excuses are not okay for me. Like, I don't think that it's okay for me to fail this test because I had doctor's appointments or because work was crazy, because honestly, work is always going to be crazy. Like, I need to pass this test. So again, I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that it's been a dream of mine for a long time. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Again, if you guys have more questions, leave them down below. I will definitely get to them. And hopefully you guys are having a good journey so far. If you guys are studying, keep going. If you didn't find out that you passed, or if you did pass recently, like, just keep pushing on. I was in the same exact boat, and it's crazy now how things are just completely different. Like, being done, I can go to the park with Macy, I can do so much stuff, and I can tell you after the fact, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. Put all that time in, because eventually you're gonna be done and you're gonna think that something's missing. Like, I have been done for what, like almost a month now, and I still feel like there's something missing because I'm so used to studying. But it's also great because I know nothing's missing. Like, I don't need to study anymore. So anyway, I would definitely keep you guys updated with the license process. I will definitely keep answering your guys' questions, so leave them down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.